There was a time in his life when waking up felt heavier than going to sleep, not because of physical exhaustion, but because every morning forced him to face everything he had not become yet. Every dream postponed, every version of himself he had slowly abandoned along the way. The silence of dawn was never peaceful for him. It was loud and confrontational, filled with unanswered questions, unfulfilled promises, and the growing fear that time was moving forward relentlessly while he remained stuck, watching life pass by instead of living it. He did not grow up surrounded by success stories, mentors, or examples of extraordinary lives, but rather by people who had learned to accept limitation as normal, who slowly traded hope for routine and ambition for survival. They were not weak people. They were tired people, exhausted by disappointment, worn down by reality. And over time, that exhaustion became contagious, shaping the environment he grew up in and the expectations placed upon him. From an early age, he learned an unspoken rule that governed everything. Dream carefully, because dreaming too big made others uncomfortable, and wanting more was often interpreted as arrogance rather than courage. So he learned to keep his ambitions quiet, hidden deep inside his chest, protected from judgment, ridicule, and the crushing words of those who had already surrendered to mediocrity. But quiet dreams do not disappear. They wait patiently. They grow restless in silence. And at night, when distractions faded, they returned with the same haunting question that refused to leave him alone. Is this really all you are going to be? Or are you going to fight for the life you secretly imagine when no one is watching? He tried to silence that voice by filling his days with responsibilities, excuses, and routines that kept him busy but never fulfilled, convincing himself that comfort was safer than risk, and that purpose was a luxury few could afford. He told himself he was being realistic, that dreaming was dangerous, and that survival was more important than fulfillment. Yet deep down, he knew that surviving without meaning was slowly destroying him. Even in his lowest moments, something inside him refused to completely shut down, a fragile but stubborn spark that whispered he was not born just to endure pain, but to rise above it. Life did not offer him a dramatic turning point or a sudden miracle. Instead, it applied pressure, quiet and constant, shaping him through discomfort, uncertainty, and repeated disappointment. Failure became familiar. Each attempt to change a situation seemed to end in frustration, reinforcing the fear that maybe he was not strong enough, talented enough, or deserving enough to become more. The people around him unintentionally strengthened that doubt. Some laughed at his attempts. Others warned him to stop before embarrassing himself, claiming they were only trying to protect him. What they never realized was that fear of failure was already costing him far more than any mistake ever could, slowly eroding his confidence and shrinking his sense of identity. One night, after another long day that led nowhere, he stared at his reflection and barely recognized the person looking back. Tired eyes, slumped posture, and a soul weighed down by years of unrealized potential. In that quiet moment, he made a decision that wasn't loud or dramatic. He didn't promise victory or success. He simply decided to stop running from himself and to move forward no matter the outcome. The days that followed were harder, not easier, because growth always demands payment up front, and the price is discomfort, discipline, and consistency when motivation disappears. Routine replaced excitement, effort replaced comfort, and there were mornings he wanted to quit before he even began. Moments when giving up felt easier than continuing. Doubt returned often, louder than before. But this time he did not obey it blindly. He questioned it, challenged it, and kept moving forward despite it. He learned that confidence is not loud or instant. It is built quietly through repetition, patience, and the discipline to show up even when no one is watching or applauding. Slowly, his posture changed, not only physically, but mentally, as he stopped apologizing for wanting more and stopped shrinking himself to fit into the comfort zones of others. He no longer explained his goals to people who never believed in them, realizing that not everyone deserves access to your dreams. The world around him did not change overnight, but he did. And that internal shift altered everything about how he faced challenges and adversity. Obstacles stopped feeling like signs to quit and started feeling like confirmation that he was finally moving forward instead of standing still. Pain stopped being an enemy and became a teacher, each setback refining him, each failure forcing him to adapt, grow, and become stronger than before. He realized that the weight he had carried for so long was never meant to crush him. It was meant to build strength, resilience, and character. Progress was slow and often invisible. Days turned into months, months into years, and yet something undeniable was forming beneath the surface. One day he looked back and saw how far he had come, not measured in sudden success, but in discipline, resilience, and self-respect. The same people who once doubted him now wondered how he stayed so focused, never seeing the nights he almost gave up, or the sacrifices he made in silence. He learned that rising is not about proving others wrong, but about proving to yourself that you can endure discomfort without losing your soul. Conquering, he discovered, is not domination over others, but mastery over your own mind, habits, and decisions. Fear never disappeared completely. Bad days still arrived unannounced, but fear no longer controlled his actions or defined his choices. Instead of waiting for permission or validation, he built his worth through consistent action and personal responsibility. The moment he stopped blaming circumstances was the moment he gained power over them. Realizing control begins internally, success stopped being a distant destination and became a daily standard reflected in his discipline, effort, and mindset. Intention lost its power, while action became everything, shaping his identity through repetition. Action, practiced daily, reshaped his destiny in ways he once believed were impossible. Some dreams evolved, others expanded, but his commitment to himself never weakened again. He became someone who finishes what he starts, someone who keeps promises even when no one is watching. Life continued to test him relentlessly, because it always tests those who choose to rise instead of settle. But now, he welcomed the challenge, not because he was fearless, but because he was resilient and prepared. He understood that conquering your own mind is the greatest victory available to any human being. He stopped asking, "What if I fail?" and started asking, "What if I never try?" And that shift changed everything. Regret revealed itself as heavier than effort, heavier than sacrifice, heavier than discipline. He was done carrying regrets that came from fear and inaction. His life did not become perfect, but it became purposeful, guided by intention and responsibility. Purpose gave meaning to every struggle, every sacrifice, and every lonely step forward. Now, when he looks ahead, he does not see guarantees or certainty. He sees possibility. Because rising is a decision that must be made every single day, regardless of circumstances. And conquering begins the moment you refuse to give up on the person you are becoming. If this story touched you, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe.